Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats.
You know, sometimes games have stakes that we don't even imagine are possible, and if you're within the sound of my voice, that must mean you're in the seats with once more, as always. My name is Dave Voigt, and I'm the host of this podcast where we sit down with a wide-ranging variety of industry professionals and pick their brain about current projects, state of the industry, how they got started, and so very much more in a light and conversational fashion. And if you like how we do things around here, I'm assuming you do, you're listening to us right now, you can find us basically wherever you get your podcasts. Over on Amazon, Spotify, Apple, Google. It's all good. And plus, we archive every single one of our episodes over at our In the Seats YouTube channel. So if you can give us a like and subscribe there as well, that would be fantastic. Plus, you can find us on the social media, as the kids call it. You can find us over at Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at either at In the Seats or at It's Podcast One for all kinds of fun and updates. And also, we're on the TikTok because we're trying to stay current with the kids. So, at In the Seats if you want to follow us there as well, just for a little bit of fun too. And finally, I do dare say most importantly, please pay us a visit over at In the Seats, intheseats.ca, for all the latest and greatest from the world of film, television, film festivals, video on demands. Basically, if it's the moving image, we love to talk about it, and we love it when you come read about it. So please come on by. On this episode, we've got an interesting one. We're diving into well, it's almost an issue of faith, but not really. It's a new film documentary that is on Crave or wherever else your providers are that may have it. But it's called The Holy Game, and it's the story that takes place beyond the Vatican walls, as it were. There's a soccer championship like no other. It's young priests in seminary from around the world gathered to play in the Clericus Cup. This is a thing. It's the Clericus Cup. But The Holy Game is a documentary that's about religion, it's sport, tradition, and why, in this era, why would people sacrifice so much to be a priest, which is a really interesting question, and the film dives into that in a real excellent fashion. And we got the unique pleasure of sitting down with one of the co-directors, Brent Hodge, to talk about those very issues and so very much more. But go check out The Holy Game on Crave if you have it. But first, check out our talk with Brent Hodge, because it's a good one.
Doing a podcast on this movie. It's a crazy, weird little movie we made.
You know, it is, and I loved it. I mean, because it's like, I mean, obviously, just to kick it off, congratulations on the movie, because I was so struck by it just because it really gave us, I guess, a sense of humanity for these guys in so many ways. I mean, walk me through, I guess, finding the story of the Clericus Cup, which I did not even know existed.
We kind of fit in this pop culture documentary realm world. And we've sort of exploded in that world. We did a film about bronies, which are middle-aged men who like My Little Pony. It like dives into subculture, and that kicked things off for us. And I always think, like, you know, no one's really doing comedy documentaries. Everyone's kind of doing, you know, there's nature docs, or there's murder docs, or there's sports docs, and like the documentary industry has gotten massive, and I'm very thankful for that. But I remember watching them one day, and I was like, why is nobody touching pop culture? So why is nobody touching comedy? And this is like 5-6 years ago. We've seen a lot since then. You look at Tiger Kings of the world, or the Fire Fest, and like we're going in that realm, and it's a beautiful time in for me and in my world. But I really looked at a project and I go like, okay, well, what does my history doc look like? Well, my Muhammad Ali is actually Chris Farley. So let's do that. You know, the history of Vietnam War, that's probably something Ken Burns will do. I'll do like the history of Freaks and Geeks, the TV show. And I started going down the line, and I was like, I don't have a sports doc. Like, what does a Haji film sports doc look like? And it has to be quirky, funny, an inside look into a weird world. What is this thing? And Chris Kelly, he's the co-director of this project. He said, my dad's a deacon, and he grew up Catholic. I didn't. He grew up Catholic, and said, there's a league of priests in the Vatican that play this annual soccer tournament, and I bet we could get access. And like, David, no joke, within 2 days, we had them going over to Rome to see if we can get access. We were all over this thing and couldn't believe no one's done a project on it. There's no articles about it. There's no Vice magazine article. We were like, this is insane. What is this thing? And what I didn't know is the term that you brought up is this humanity. I have an opinion about the Catholic Church. Chris has a different one as well because he grew up in it. He sees the values in faith, but also he sees the wrongdoings. But I really had this mission of why would anyone want to be a priest? That's what we have to get to in this film. And like, why? Like, honestly, you got to tell me why, because I truly don't see it. And it's not black and white. There is humans involved in this institution, and it's not. There's only two types of Catholic sort of films that I've seen get made, which are completely anti-Catholic, hard-hitting journalist docs, which have their value. And then the other side is, the Catholic Church puts on their own docs or films that are just crap, usually very badly produced and a product of nothing. And I needed to make sure I got both sides of that. That's what I think is in a really great film. So to answer your question, Chris's dad brought it. They got access for us, but then I knew I needed to put it into a Hodge Films realm, bring it to current day, bring it into pop culture and why we care now. And the soccer really brought us there.
That's absolutely wild just because it's one of those things where you see these guys and you see sort of just them going through, like, you get to see sort of their influences and why they wanted to become priests, but you get to see them interacting sort of on a human level and see them talking about soccer and seeing them talking about the game. And I'm kind of curious, like, when you were boots on the ground, was it the soccer first? Was it finding subject first? Like, how did you manage to find the branch off in order to find the story, I guess, is the next question.
Yeah. So, when you follow a soccer tournament, you have to spread it a little wide, because your character might not make it to the finals. So if you choose narrow, you might be screwing yourself. In this case, it's a global story, and you gravitate towards maybe who can speak English really well, maybe from North America, because that's what who we relate to in terms of characters. But the problem is, as we know, North Americans and Americans are not good at soccer, so we knew they weren't going to make it to the finals. We followed a few of the teams that have there's 36 teams. We knew that there's sort of a top 6 every year, and so we started there. And then it comes down to characters. When you think about these priests playing soccer, probably everyone out there thinks, oh, it's like a bigger, older guy, bald, Friar Tuck looking
right
gentleman.
Right.
But it's not. These are like young, GQ, good-looking priests, and that was a shock to me. I was like, these guys are my age, and if they take off their clerical and their priest outfit, and they just wear a t-shirt and go for a beer with me, they just look like a normal guy. And we wanted to hit that. We sort of wanted to find these really normal guys and know that there's some characters that are outspoken and could speak deeply and freely about the problems with the church, as well as why they're into this.
Now, I'm curious, was because like you said, like, some of your films in the past have had a bit of a comedic bent to it. Was there any sort of pushback when you started to talk to people and sort of wonder why you're making a film? Because I really was struck throughout your entire film, just the earnestness of it all. It was never trying to make fun. It was never trying to go one way or the other, but it was going, wow, this is kind of fun, but we've got these real people in it who can sort of talk honestly about some of these real world situations that are going on, especially inside the Catholic Church.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I made it a really clear goal of mine to not punch down. It's so easy to in this.
Right.
It's really easy to kind of just make it quirky and punch down and say, especially as a person who's not a Catholic, like, I don't understand this world, and it's kind of hocus pocus to me. And there are people that believe in this, and there's people that take the values and the faith very seriously. And that was great having Chris as a co-director to kind of make sure I know what I know where the joke is. And I think for me, there's comedy in this. Here, I'll start that again. Sorry, 1 second. For me, there is comedy in this, but there's also a lot of tragedy and a subject matter that you can't joke about. The Catholic Church and the things that have gone on in the past is not funny. There's nothing funny about this. And so I'd be very careful to toe a line between finding my characters who are comedic, and not punching down on that, but also just making sure that we're honest. And I love making this movie for that reason. A lot of our other movies are comedic, and they're comedic by nature, and we stick to that. This one's got more. It has more layers that I'm very proud of, that we went there as filmmakers.
Was there a moment during sort of the process of shooting where you kind of knew where the film was going? Because I mean, I can imagine, especially in the early days, as you're sort of getting the lay of the land, you're not necessarily going to know where the story is going to go, because really you've gone to this different country on the concept of, yeah, there's a bunch of priests playing soccer. Like, where did you find sort of I guess the humanity of the story?
Well, the humanity for me came from getting to know these individuals, going back to their house, starting there at the beginning of the cup, and moving our way through. I think time brings humanity. People perform in front of a camera. They have their PR answers when it comes to what they're supposed to answer about the Catholic Church. Getting to know somebody as they transition from a seminarian to a priest is like, and this is how I had to relate to it. And that's how I could make it human. Was this is about college kids in their final year of college and not knowing what they're going to do with their life.
Mm.
We've all been there. I've been there, and I could relate to that. The difference between my life and their life is that their life is theirs is a life of God. Mine was just whatever I wanted to do with my life. So that sort of humanity came sort of twofold. And then I think bringing in soccer really helps with humanity, because we can relate to that. The belief system is the hard part, because I just don't get it. It's just not my world. And so having Chris Kelly co-direct that was a huge factor in terms of understanding why anybody would want to be a part of this. I'll say, like, it is time. And then I didn't really have that much of a map. On our other films, they're usually extremely professional. We have call sheets and we go out as crews. The great stuff we got in the Holy Game is me with a camera, me and Chris out for dinner with one of the subjects, and all of a sudden we just start rolling because we're getting so deep on a great conversation. I don't know if the sound is good. I don't even know if we're in focus. That was where we got the great stuff. And we realized quickly, we can't treat this one like other productions. We kind of need to go over to Rome. Not a bad place to go.
Yeah.
Enjoy ourselves and take time with them. Wake up in the morning with them and go to school, go to their mass with them, go to soccer practice with them. You sort of needed to live it out for it to be real and it to be honest.
Now, I'm kind of curious, like during this entire process, because when when I look at this, and I mean, when I see sort of the event of the Clericus Cup, and I see all these young men in their final year of seminary, like sort of making the transition into priesthood, having that center around sort of this fun soccer tournament is kind of genius. Did you get any sort of insight into sort of why the Clericus Cup started in the first place?
Well, the insight to why it started was it has, all the great reasons. Europe and soccer go hand in hand.
Yeah.
The connection to humans and people go hand in hand with soccer. Before you know you're a priest, before you have that calling as an individual, if you're a European, you definitely kicked a soccer ball around.
Right.
So it's history for the players and them wanting to continue, but it's also a way for the church to connect with people. The reason why it started was in Italy, there was huge problem with hooligans, and there was someone who actually there was a police officer that died in one of the matches, and that was the sort of fruition of this cup as they brought religion and faith into the idea of what's happening and how gruesome it is. They said, let's start a league that can bring people together, and that's what they wanted. And it's been really successful, and it's really good soccer too. Like it's not bad. It's not like a rec league soccer. This is like well played soccer. I'm not going to say that anyone's going to be the next Ronaldo, but they're not priests out there. They're not quiet and calm. They are going for it. They're getting yellow cards and red cards and the blue card, which they have. Like, this is real, the real deal. And that was awesome to see as well.
Do you think, I guess from both your and Chris's perspective as filmmakers, to be able to have that, the fact that these are people, like these are guys going for it, and they're guys going into this sort of next stage of their life, and they're still human beings, and they can sort of have a sort of something outside of the church that still centers them, but still sort of understanding the world that is around them, even when they're going into this sort of all-consuming faith?
Yeah, there's an institution and they're a part of that. And then there's individuals within that institution. And that was my surprise and my learning curve was like, there's people in this that are good and they represent something that has a lot of issues. And I wasn't going to let anyone get away with skirting those issues. If you represent the Catholic Church, you have to know how to talk about this. It's going to get brought up for the rest of your life. It's going to get brought up for the rest of your life when you become a priest. So let's do it now. And I'm going to give you a spotlight and a place to say your reasoning here, because, the audience wants to know. And it's not just an audience. It's not like, let's answer the age old question. It's a new age. That's the element of pop culture that I like. This is a new era of humans. And are you going to make a change? You have the power to. Is that what you're telling me? And I really needed them to be honest about that. And I knew I didn't have a film until we were going to get that kind of conversation out of them.
Well, and it's also about understanding sort of the, as much as we will either demonize or villainize an institution, it is so much more complex than that. And just with all the moving parts and all the people in there that want to do something good. And I mean, that can even be applied to sort of the ideals behind organized religion. And I mean, it's one of those things where it's important to see sort of the complexities behind the curtain. And I mean, I think your film really does that. And I'm kind of curious, were there any sort of preconceived notions that you had about not maybe just the Catholic Church, but maybe organized religion that you had that maybe have changed or have gone away?
I mean, I to be fully transparent, I'm like grew up atheist, and Chris grew up Catholic. So I think the whole thing's crazy. I think the whole thing's so you have to really convince me as an individual. But like I said, the audience isn't in that place. The audience, a lot of people grew up with Catholicism, and they see a value system in that, and they care. And I don't know if I changed in any way, but I definitely I see the mutual respect and why it's important to people in their life. I still think they have a lot of explaining to do. And as we see with new information that keeps coming out, there's going to be something new every month. And so they have some explaining to do, and they also have some actions. And I get it. It wasn't these individuals that did these things, but they're representing that. And so, it's an ongoing conversation. Maybe there's the holy game too that we could do. The other part of it, if and when this gets heavy, you just go back to soccer and let's just watch soccer and I can talk about it later. It's this weird, great sort of weave in and out of that story where we don't have the answer to that story. They have to provide action for that part. So yeah, I learned that they have respect for this, and I can see why.
And conversation has to be started too. And that's how things would change and I mean, I think that's sort of the magic of your film, because it's not necessarily hammering an issue. It's just trying to sort of present a conversation that needs to be had and needs to be continued.
You're absolutely right, David. And that's it. And that's what that's what a good documentary is. And it's entertainment in a lot of ways. And there's characters that bring you through. And it's ultimately that conversation, because I don't know if this whole thing is black and white.
Yeah.
There's gray in the middle there, because there is some good that the church does for people. It can't just be black and white, and it can't be a well-produced documentary just by some Catholic production company that just says how great Jesus is. And it can't be on the other side either, where it's just this hard-hitting, journalist-driven doc on how horrible it is. You got to go to both sides if you want to see the good and the evil. And in the end, these people, they stuck through it and they graduate and they become priests, and one doesn't. Not to give the whole story away, but what an interesting part of the film where we actually have a priest that doesn't go through with it, has a secret wife and kids, which I guess is a crime. And now what? What is his life? Does he feel close to God? Did he do something wrong? Are we forgiven for our sins? What is this world? And that was a huge moment for me when we got Father Oscar to talk during the pandemic. I was like, we have a movie now. We really truly have, this other side of somebody leaving the priesthood that can explain things to us.
And I mean, and it really shows just sort of the interesting and, I mean, obviously sort of archaic rulings, because I mean, you can't be married and have kids if you're Catholic, but if you're Protestant or Anglican, it's okay. And I mean, why is it different? It's like there are all these sort of really arcane rules in so many of these I guess, establishments that, have their reverence, which is fine, but it's also understanding sort of the need to adapt and the need to move on from them. And it really shines a light on the fact that, modern society has changed to a degree. You know what I mean? It's not, and it's important for these older establishments to try to keep up with them. I mean, I think that's one of the big things that the Catholic Church is currently struggling with right now, because they're behind the curve, quite frankly.
Yeah, where are we now? What's next? That's what they got to answer, and keep playing soccer too, because people like that.
Oh, no, for sure. And I mean, I'm kind of curious because from your perspective, we look at a film, or we look at an issue like this, and we look at a film like this, and people will go, oh, it's going to be depressing, or it's going to be a lot of facts and horrible things, but it's centered around soccer, which is fun. But people tend to miss the fact that documentary inside of the form has so much freedom to take the story in so many different angles. And I'm kind of curious from your perspective, what is it about documentary filmmaking that is so compelling? Because I get the feeling like if you had tried to tell this story, or even the story of one of your subjects in a straight narrative, it would have been completely different.
Well, you think you just said it. I mean, you gave the answer that I wake up for every day, which is like, you can't script this. There's no way I could make the story up, and there's no way that it would have the twists and turns. There's no way I would say, oh, you know what? The older priest in this, he's got a secret wife and kids. Let's make sure that's in the story point around page 75.
Right.
It just doesn't happen, and like, you just can't write this stuff. And that's when I know a good film exists. And that's when I take them on. It's less about where the trends are going and what kind of film people want to watch. It sometimes goes, I want to watch that. And I can't believe this exists. And I got to tell people about this world, because this is nuts.
Is that how you sort of stay true to sort of your vision as a storyteller? Because I mean, we live in such a unique time where, and I mean, I hate using the word content, but there's so many avenues to get so many different kinds of projects out there. But on the flip side of that, it's so hard to get so many of these projects seen. And I'm kind of curious for you, are you conscious of that in sort of the day-to-day minutia of your life, or do you just have to stay true to the story you want to tell at any given moment?
I mean, I love making movies. I really love selling movies too.
Yeah.
I love thinking about an audience, and I like making entertainment. I like making things that I know people will want to watch. And that doesn't always come down to a network or an exec or a trend on where films are going, or the fact that murder docs are super popular right now. We should do a bunch of those. It really just comes down to something that I think the audience is gonna like. And I think sticking true and being honest with yourself is, the audience is your ultimate goal, is to sort of move them and take them through something. And you got to finish these movies and say, are we doing that? Is this the movie? Do we say what we wanted to say? Do we leave a discussion open for other people to say what they wanted to say? Is somebody learn something from this? Did they get entertained? Did they laugh? Did they have a great time? Was it a good date night? Like, I think of these things more than I think of my own personal opinion always. And that's been something that's made this all successful for me.
I mean, I think that's a good way to be, because I mean, that's what you have control over, right? There's so many other elements out there that you just don't have control over. And I mean, I can imagine it would be the kind of thing that would make you go a little mad, especially when you're trying to mount a project or get something going. Because I mean, especially as a documentarian, I mean, sometimes it's research and it's planning and it's this, that, or the other. And sometimes it's you hear a story from a guy and then 2 days later you're on a plane. That's sort of the nature of the beast when it comes to documentary filmmaking that so many people tend to miss out on.
Well, it's thrilling. That part's thrilling. You couldn't be more alive, in my opinion, than that. You got an idea, you're curious about it, it keeps you up at night, and then you go and find it and make it. I mean, my God, that is art. That to me is why I'm in this. So you're hitting it right over the head. It's perfect.
Well, congratulations, man, on making a brilliant little piece of art that, like you said, is entertaining, but it gives us a sense of scope of sort of the establishment that these people are going into, but also sort of the humanity and the issues that they know that they're going to have to tackle once they're inside. And it really sort of gives a complex look at sort of, I mean, I don't want to say religion, organized religion, but just sort of, it gives at least to me, it gives a real clear sort of sense of the idea of faith. No matter what that faith might be, you just have to figure it out on your own, then you go from there, which I think your film really puts an important light on.
Thanks, Dave. I really appreciate it. And who knows, maybe me and you will be priests one day. So.
I think it's more likely that we'll be talking about the Holy Game too.
Yeah, that's it. Thanks so much for having me, Dave.
All right, man. Thanks again for the time, brother. I appreciate it.
You too. I can't wait to listen. Thanks so much.
And don't forget to visit our friends over at Bay Street Video for all your DVD, Blu-ray rental, or purchasing needs this summer, as they are still open for curbside and some mailing delivery as well. Over at 1172 Bay Street, Toronto, Ontario, Canada, you can give them a call at 416-964-9088. That's 416-964-9088. Or send them an email at baystreetvideoto@gmail.com for any of your DVD and Blu-ray needs.